All right, so get ready, because today we are going to be diving deep into a topic that I think a lot of people have questions about.
Yeah,
Sex during menstruation.
lots of misinformation out there.
Oh, tons and tons and tons of misinformation. So we are going to be going through 2 YouTube videos that we found from Dandelion Medical Animation. And both of these videos are called Intercourse on Period Woman Can Get Pregnant During Her Period.
Catchy title.
Very catchy title, but I think that is one of the biggest questions that people have, right?
I think so. And, it's surprising how many myths there are
Yeah.
surrounding this topic in general.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, even the idea that menstruation is unclean.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a natural bodily process.
Right. It's not something to be ashamed of.
Not at all.
Period blood is just the shedding of the uterine lining.
Yeah.
When an egg hasn't been fertilized,
Exactly.
it's a sign that your body is working exactly how it should be.
And yet we have so many cultures that have all these taboos around menstruation.
It's crazy how those beliefs still persist.
I know, it's wild.
But I think understanding the biology can help you break free from those
Right.
outdated notions and embrace your body.
I love that. Speaking of biology, though, there was something that I found really interesting in these videos, this kind of surprising connection between period sex and endometriosis.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Did you see that stat that women with endometriosis are twice as likely to have sex during their period?
Yeah, that was wild. I was like, what is the deal with that? Is that a cause or an effect?
That's the question, right?
Right.
Some researchers think that retrograde menstruation might play a role.
And remind me what that is again?
So that's when the menstrual blood flows back up into the fallopian tubes.
Okay.
So the idea is if you have sex during your period, it's possible that it could increase that backflow
Oh.
and potentially contribute to endometriosis developing.
Wow, I never even thought of it that way.
It's still being researched, but it definitely highlights a complex relationship between
Yeah.
menstruation and sexual activity and this condition.
Wow. Okay, so we've busted that unclean myth. We've got this potential link with endometriosis. But what about hormones?
Yeah.
Because, they fluctuate throughout the entire menstrual cycle, but how does that impact things like your sex drive?
Well, think about it. Estrogen and progesterone are kind of like the conductors of your reproductive orchestra.
Okay.
Their levels are going up and down throughout your cycle and influencing everything from your mood
Yeah.
to your libido.
So some people might feel more in the mood during their period. Some people might feel less interested.
Exactly. Some women will report a higher libido right before or during their period, maybe because of the changing hormones, but others will experience less desire, and that could be because of cramps or just not feeling comfortable with physical aspects of sex
Right.
at that time.
Everyone's different.
Totally. There's no one-size-fits-all experience when it comes to menstruation and sex.
I love that. Your hormones, your emotions,
It's
your personal preferences all play a role.
all connected.
It's all connected. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about infections, because I know this is something that a lot of people are concerned about. Could period sex increase your risk of getting infections?
It's a really good question, and the answer is kind of complicated. Studies show that the menstrual cycle can actually affect your immune response.
So you could be more susceptible to infections at certain points.
Exactly. And if one partner has a bloodborne STI like HIV or hepatitis, there could be a slightly higher chance of transmission during period sex because of the blood.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. It's important to be aware of that.
Yeah,
And it really reinforces how important safe sex practices are,
like using condoms.
like using condoms.
Yeah, period or no period.
Definitely.
But even with protection, some people might be wondering, is it going to be painful?
Yeah, well, again, it depends on the person.
Mhm.
Some people find it uncomfortable because of cramps, while other people actually get pain relief from orgasms.
Wait, what orgasms can actually help with cramps?
For some people, yes. The muscle contractions and the endorphins released during orgasm can actually help ease menstrual cramps.
Wow, that is so cool.
It's like your body has a built-in pain relief system.
I know.
It's amazing.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've talked about how everyone's experience is different.
Yeah.
We've got this potential pain relief benefit from orgasms. We talked about safe sex. But there's one big question that we haven't addressed yet.
Okay.
Can you get pregnant from having sex during your period?
It is less likely, but it's still possible.
Okay, why?
Here's why. Sperm are pretty resilient little guys.
Mhm.
They can actually survive in the reproductive tract for up to 5 days,
No, wow.
just waiting for an egg to be released.
So even if you aren't ovulating while you're on your period, you could still get pregnant if you ovulate early and had sex in the days before.
Exactly.
Huh?
And if you have irregular cycles, it's even harder to know for sure when you're ovulating.
Oh, gosh. So yeah, relying on the rhythm method or the period-safe method to prevent pregnancy is
Not a good idea.
not a good idea at all.
Especially if you're really trying to avoid pregnancy.
Yeah, much better to use a more reliable form of contraception.
Absolutely.
So going back to the videos for a second, something that really stood out to me was how much they emphasized that everybody's different.
Yeah, it's so important. What feels good for one person might not feel good for another.
Absolutely.
And that's totally normal.
You know, I used to think there was like this one right way to experience period sex,
Yeah.
but obviously I was wrong.
We're all unique.
Yeah.
Our bodies respond to things differently.
Totally.
It could be anything from your libido to your pain tolerance to just how you feel about the practicalities of sex during your period.
And I think there's also something to be said for just letting go of those expectations and focusing on what feels good for you and your partner.
Definitely. It's about finding what you enjoy, communicating openly, and respecting each other's boundaries.
I love that. And speaking of things that feel good, I know we touched on this earlier, but I just think it's so fascinating that orgasms can actually help relieve menstrual cramps.
Right? It sounds counterintuitive, but studies suggest that those muscle contractions and the release of endorphins during orgasm can help ease pain for some people.
That is so cool. I wish we talked about this more.
I know, right? Like it's a natural pain reliever.
Right.
It's definitely an area that needs more research,
Totally.
but the potential benefits are pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about the fact that everyone is different. We've got these potential pain-relieving benefits of orgasms. We've talked about safe sex practices. Is there anything else that stood out to you from these videos?
I think the part about the immune system was really interesting.
Okay.
The menstrual cycle can actually change how your immune system is working,
Oh, wow.
and that can make you more likely to get infections at certain points.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about STIs, but also your overall susceptibility to getting sick.
Exactly. Our
Mm.
bodies are constantly changing.
Wow.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and I feel like the more we learn about these things, the better equipped we are to make those informed choices about our health.
Definitely.
But I think it's time to address the emotional side of this too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we haven't really touched on that yet.
Okay, sure. I mean, there's definitely a lot to consider beyond just the physical stuff.
Exactly. Like, how do societal taboos and body image issues play into all of this?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we're constantly bombarded with these messages that periods are something to be hidden or to be ashamed of.
Right.
And I think that can make it hard to feel confident and sexy.
Especially when you're on your period.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're fighting against years of conditioning that tells us our bodies are wrong or unclean in some way.
Yeah, and I think part of this is just about reclaiming our bodies
Yeah.
and our sexuality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not letting societal pressures dictate how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I think communication is super important here too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Open and honest communication is like the foundation for any healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to sex.
Yeah, if one partner is feeling a little bit insecure or hesitant about period sex, they need to feel comfortable talking about it.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the other partner needs to really listen and be understanding and create a safe space for that conversation to happen.
So it's about creating a dynamic where both people feel seen and heard and respected.
Exactly. And that can actually really enhance intimacy
Oh, wow.
and strengthen the connection between partners.
Yeah, so it's not just about talking during sex, but also having those ongoing conversations
Oh, yeah.
about your desires and boundaries and what feels good for both of you.
You got it. It's all about fostering that mutual understanding and respect that goes beyond the bedroom.
I love that. Okay, well, we have covered so much in this deep dive. We've busted myths, we've explored all the scientific stuff, we've talked about the emotional side of things. But before we wrap up, I do have one more question that I think a lot of people might be thinking about. So what about like the cultural stuff and societal influences surrounding this whole topic?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
It's interesting how, like, cultural norms and beliefs can shape the way we think about menstruation.
Totally.
And then that can impact our attitudes about sex during your period.
Yeah. I remember growing up hearing all these negative things about periods, like it was something to be ashamed of,
Yeah.
or like keep it hidden.
It's unfortunate, but a lot of cultures view it as taboo
Yeah.
and associate it with, like, impurity or even danger.
Which is wild because it's just a natural biological process.
It really is. It's a sign of health and fertility, not something to be scared of or, like, stigmatized.
Right. Do you think those attitudes, though, are part of the reason why some people might feel uncomfortable or hesitant about period sex?
I think so, for sure.
Yeah.
If you're told from a young age that periods are unclean or unattractive, it makes sense that those beliefs might affect your intimate life.
Yeah, like you have to unlearn all those negative messages.
Yeah.
And really just reclaim your body and your sexuality.
Exactly. It's about challenging those old norms and embracing a more positive view of menstruation.
And I think that also involves being open with your partner.
Right? Absolutely. Communication is key.
Yeah.
Talking about your feelings and your concerns and what you prefer is so important for making sure you feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah. It's about respecting each other's boundaries and needs. And sometimes that means being open to trying something new.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means saying no to period sex altogether.
Exactly. And communication isn't just a one-time thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. Checking in with each other and being honest about how you're feeling and making sure you're on the same page.
I love that. So to kind of sum things up,
Okay.
what are like the key takeaways about this whole emotional and cultural side of period sex?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is there's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
It's a really personal decision, and there are so many things that play into it: your own experiences, your cultural background, your relationship.
And just challenging those negative societal messages and embracing a more positive view of your body.
Totally. Your body is amazing, and menstruation is a natural part of you.
I love that. Well, I think this deep dive has been really insightful.
Yeah.
I think we've covered so much. We've explored the science, we debunked some myths, and we even got into the emotional and cultural stuff.
Yeah, hopefully our listeners feel a little more informed and empowered to make the choices that are right for them.
Yeah, and remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Exactly.
Keep asking those questions and keep those minds open.
Keep talking to each other.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of discovery.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay true to yourself.